Silly people, Nina here. So this week I've decided to talk about all the things that I've been loving throughout the week, and just things that I've been reading. I have reading, music, and tea. Those are like my three favorite, and climate change. Those are like my four-ish favorite things that I've been like reading about and loving, and yeah, just enjoying this week. So I figured I would do like a little weekly favorites, weekly update, and switch it up from just talking about books. I do have books, obviously, that I'm going to be talking about, but then I figured I'd also talk about music because it relates to the books, and then tea because that also is environmentally related. So yeah, so to start off, obviously books. These are the two books that I've been reading. The first one is Greta Thunberg's No One Is Too Small to Make a Difference. I honestly didn't have any idea what this was going to be about or what this was until I started reading it. Like, I didn't have any indication. This is a book on her speeches and different talks that she gave at different like climate summits and just different like in different countries and so on. This is really interesting. I've heard a good majority of these. Some of them I hadn't heard before. The cool thing with this is if you listen to the audiobook, which I highly recommend, it's her doing the audiobook. So you can hear how she's like actually reading the speeches, if that makes sense, while you're like physically reading it. Yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was really interesting. She talks about how the richest countries, like the US, where I am, need to do the most with climate change because we have the most resources and we're using the most resources. Ergo, we need to be doing a lot more than we are. She talks about Sweden too, and how Sweden is up there with using a lot of resources and not doing their part for climate change when they could be doing more. That's this one. My favorite speech is, wait, I'll tell you. Her speech called Can You Hear Me? And I just think it's so powerful. I've heard this. I'll link it down below so you can like watch it if you want. I've heard this speech a few times before, and basically throughout the speech she's addressing a whole group of people. I don't remember where she's giving this one. I want to say it's a climate summit of some sort. I don't remember. But she's addressing a group of political leaders and people in power. And throughout the speech she says, "Can you hear me? Is my English okay? Is the microphone on?" And like it just, and then she'll talk about like the environment and climate change and like what needs to be done and what these leaders need to be doing. And then she'll again say, "I'm sorry, can you hear me? Is my microphone on?" And she's basically says, then why aren't you listening? Like, you need to be listening. We need to be talking about climate change and we need to be doing something, and why aren't you doing anything? If you can hear me, why aren't you listening? I love that speech so much, and I just think it's really strong and really powerful. And we need to be doing more with climate change, which brings me into book number 2 that I read. This one I got as a gift for my birthday, I believe, a few years ago. Last year. And it's We Are All Greta, Be Inspired to Save the World. I feel like this is a very like kid-friendly book to climate change, or like middle grade level book for climate change. Greta has a book on that's with other scientists on like basically the stats of global warming and like the science behind it and like the climate about it, and I really want to read that. I haven't gotten around to it yet, but that's on my to be read list. This one is basically just like a digestible version of that, and it has a whole thing on like our house is on fire. That's another one of the speeches in this book, and it's mentioned a lot in here, about how climate change is an emergency and our house is on fire, and you would treat it as an emergency, so why aren't you treating climate change as an emergency? So that's this. And it's like got like the scientific like knowledge and like stats in it, but being more like, I don't know, easier to read and like digestible, I guess. And then there's things on like what's happening to the planet, what's happening to animals, what's happening to the species. And then there's also things though like what we can do. So basically like eating, there's a thing on eating less meat, reducing plastic, reducing consumption, and like what people like as individuals can do. And there's a whole like chapter in the back that's dedicated to like simple things that we can do every day. And basically also contacting government officials to act on climate change. So that's this one. So these are the two books I've read this week. Both of them were very good. This one I would say is good, I guess, if you want to learn about climate change. I would suggest maybe checking this out from the library if you can. I don't know if it's available. Or looking to see if they have it at like a local library, like a little library, or if you have a used copy. I think it's good. I don't know. Some of the information in it is well, if you don't know anything about climate change, I feel like this would be a good start. If you already know about climate change and like climate justice, this is maybe information you would probably already know. I feel like this is a very beginner's guide. This one is really interesting because it's all of her speeches. But again, if you want to go like online and read her speeches, or like again, this one was available at my local library because I looked it up, or you could listen to the audiobook. Either way, I would suggest like checking this out at the library. If you want to buy it to have it like forever on your shelf, then you can, but I would see if you could get it secondhand maybe. Also, that's the most sustainable way to get it. So moving on, my music of the week. This is why I've decided to tie in music because, where's my phone? I've been listening to the 1975 like on repeat, and the 1975 have a song with Greta Thunberg. So I was like, well, I can talk about music. On their album, Notes on a Conditional Form. So if you go to that album, and the very first one is their like title track that they have on all their 1975 albums, and it's just called 1975, and it's a speech that Greta gives with backing music. It's really cool. And then the rest of the like song right after that is basically on how we need to like wake up and look at what's happening around us. And I've just been listening to like the 1975 in general, but this is like one of my favorite, I don't know what you, like, not compilations, but just like way it descends to like her speech to like, we need to be paying attention, but like musically. I don't know, it's just really cool. So that's Notes on a Conditional Form. And then the first track is 1975, and then the second track is Wake Up. And they, like, mold together really nicely. I don't know. Like, what's it called? I don't know. They just go together really nicely. So I've been listening to a lot of the 1975 this week. Very good. Check it out. You can listen to it while you're reading the books if you want. And then my tea of the week. Because I feel like this week I've gotten a lot of news, especially in politics, about who is going to be taking over for the environment and like sustainability in the White House, and certain cabinet picks that are being made, and it's really stressful. And so to counter that, I've been focusing on reading books and just seeing like what I can do myself about sustainability and about climate change and about everything that's happening. And I drink a lot of tea, and tea like calms me. I don't like coffee. I'm not a coffee drinker, but I do love tea. So I've been drinking a lot of tea. This tea is yogi tea, and it's tangerine like energy, I believe. and they are a B Corp, which means they meet the highest like sustainability standard. And it's quite hard to become a B Corp because they have so many like qualifications that you have to meet, and then you constantly have to be hitting those like qualification marks of like sustainability, ethically, and just like production and how it's made. So it's like, I'll leave it down below so you can check it out. But it's like how the product is made. It has to be like ethically sourced and ethically made. But what the product is made out of, I had to switch my card because my card was full. But basically, B Corp, you should look for it on food labels and product labels. You can also go to their site and they'll list like all the B Corp brands. And that just means that they reach the highest level of like sustainability to be B Corp certified, and it's hard to get the B Corp certification. So yeah, I tried to buy B Corp products when possible, and Yogi tea is one of them. Yeah. So that is my tea of the week, is Yogi tea. Music is Notes on an Unconditional Form, and then my books are both Greta Thunberg, No One Is Too Small to Make a Difference, and We Are All Greta. This week, I encourage you to look into sustainability if you want, and maybe read about it, listen to one of Greta's speeches. If you want to read one of these books, then you should. And yeah, just try to be a little eco-friendly. I love you all, and I will see you next week on Friday with a brand new video. Bye!